Okay, we are live. Hi, I'm Katie Harris, owner and CEO of NursePreneurs, and I'm here with my business partner.
Hi, I'm Jill Weberding. I'm CEO and founder of NurseAssure.
And we are here with all of the nurses that are participating in Pitchfest. Woohoo! Very excited. And we're going to introduce you to everybody. We just wanted to come in tonight and talk a little bit about, what they've been through, how they've done this, what they've done, and oh my gosh, they've been through a lot. Jill, you want to talk a little bit about their journey?
Yes. And we're getting a little bit of feedback, so I'm going to have everybody kind of mute if you can, if you haven't already, just to help so everyone live can hear really well. So hey, I'm Jill Weberding, and I've been Katie and I have we've been working with all these wonderful nurses who have years of experience in nursing, and what they have been working on, incredibly hard, is to solve a problem that is in the healthcare system that they haven't been able to solve inside the system. So we all know, I think everybody is in agreement, that there's clearly some gaps in our current healthcare system. And that doesn't matter if you're in the United States or if you're in Canada or Australia or another country. We've all have gaps in the system. And these nurses, what they have done is said, you know what, I tried to solve it while I was in the system and it's just not closing. And it's important enough that they committed to creating a business to solve that problem outside its system. And that's what I'm incredibly excited to talk about tonight. Pitchfest is like Christmas week for me because it's so exciting to see what they've been working on, actually finally getting it out to the world. And the topics, I'm just going to let you know, the topics that they are tackling are not small ones, Katie.
No, they're definitely not. And I love that we do have quite the international group here tonight. We do have people from the US, Canada, Australia, all over the place. So I'm very, very excited because, nurses have the potential and more than the potential, we have the means to really change the world. And that's no small promise on our end, but it is something that I think we're all striving for. And there's so much work to be done. We need so many nurses to do it. So, yeah. So, I'm curious to hear some of the things that the students have to say about their journey, how they got here, and what they were looking for. Did they find what they were looking for in this process of where they started to where they are today? Because I think one of the things that a lot of nurses who are going to watch this or watching this now are going to say is like, oh my gosh, these nurses are so far ahead of me. I'll never catch up. But, what's the point in doing a business? And we get that a lot, after something like this. Yeah. So, it's interesting because it hasn't been that long, right?
It's been a few weeks, and that's the difference. Is like anybody can have a great idea. The question is, are you willing to commit to that idea and bring it to fruition? Do what it takes. And it does take work. So not everybody is, kind of wired for entrepreneurship. And Katie, you and I have talked a lot about, nurses in business is kind of like the specialty that nobody talks about. And I think, we're working hard to kind of bring awareness to nurses in business as a specialty, because I truly believe it's where we can make the most impact, because we can do that on a much bigger scale than working one-on-one in the bedside. So yeah, let's talk to the nurses who have been, working with. Some of them have had this idea, they've been working on it, but like the last several weeks, they have really committed and honed in on crafting exactly what their business is going to look like.
All right. So should we pick it random, or does somebody want to volunteer?
Does anybody want to volunteer? We can go across the grid. It doesn't make any difference to me. Anybody want to talk about what? Okay, we're picking.
Yeah.
Nina, do you want to start about what, how was this kind of process? You were somebody who had been kind of thinking. You had, I think, the entrepreneurial bug, right? Like you knew you wanted to do something. You had identified lots of issues. It was how did you, how do you decide? How was the process of deciding what specifically to choose?
I think that was the main issue that I struggled with, was that I had this huge gamut of ideas and things that I wanted to do, and I'd get a new idea and start on it. And so I had all these course shells and various levels of completion. And before the course, you were able to see those and see I'm just trying to throw noodles at the wall and hope something sticks. So through this process, I've just really been able to refine who my message is for based on my experience and what the best fit for my skills and how I can help nurse executives and the industries that I've worked in for over 10 years to hopefully change and improve some of the broken things that I've seen.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And it's really about, here's the thing, like most of us who've been in nursing for years, like we've got skills for days, like, and that is a struggle that we see, right, Katie? A lot of nurses, like they just can't choose, the choosing and the narrowing down is really hard. And sometimes it's like, but I could do this and I could do this and I could do this. And Nina, it was probably hard to let go of some things.
It was, but it was also freeing because you recognize what has been holding you back the whole time is trying to do everything and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say that there was probably a level of freedom that went along with that. And, I see it a lot with doctoral students. And basically what you guys are doing is a doctoral dissertation here with your businesses. And they come in and they're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm like, nope, we're going to focus on one tiny little sliver and we're going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard because you want to come in and save the world. And that's essentially what you're doing, but you have to save the world one bite at a time here.
Yeah. And in a channeled, like focused, like that's how you can make the most, the most headway, right? Is when we really channel all that energy and talent and knowledge and experience and passion into one lane and say, all right, let's go for this.
Feels much more manageable that way for sure.
Yeah, great. I love it. Jo Neal, do you want to tell us about like how have you found the process? Again, you're a nurse who's been in, like you've got such, an incredible amount of experience in leadership, choosing, your thing specifically.
Well, to be honest, I came to you via last year's Pitch Fest. I actually watched that and I went, I think I need these people. and I found out how much I did. I've actually done the doctoral dissertation that Katie was mentioning. And I knew forever that I would start a business to help nurses resist and recover from the negative impacts of bullying. And I think all of us in the practice understand that we always say, oh, we eat our young. Well, stop eating each other then. If that's, and all the things that we've tried, zero tolerance, anger management, all these things haven't worked. And I think what you gave me, what coming into this process has helped me is I like Nina, I could do this, I can do this, I can do this, I could do this. And I think I have a tattoo that from Jill, it says, stay in your lane on my wrist. But narrowing down, I mean, I had
encouragement.
Yes, I had created a tool that I'm absolutely passionate about helping people, and nurses in particular. And I did my doctoral dissertation on bullying in the operating room. And when I got done, I didn't know what to do differently. I found out what I already knew, that yes, this happens. It happens, and I think our most vulnerable population are those new grads and those new folks into practice, but it continues on. And you become the new kid in a new unit, and all of a sudden you could have had 20 years of experience, but you never worked here before. And so trying to slice that onion to where it was something that was deliverable. And it was manageable. And I just, because of the pandemic, the word PPE was out there and everybody knows what it is. So I've come up with a program called Arming Yourself with Bullying PPE. And I think it resonates with a lot of people. So I have found my lane.
Yes, I think you definitely have.
Definitely. And Jo Neal, to your point, like, the dissertation, the PhD doesn't necessarily bring a solution to people, right? It makes you aware and you can say, yes, it's true, but, that doesn't solve the problem. And that's was a big beef with me because, I spent years and years and years getting degrees and degrees and degrees and MS here, MS there, MB here, with all the letters behind my name. But I was kind of waiting for things to happen to me as opposed to making things happen. And I think that's the big difference in entrepreneurialism, because you have to have that spirit where you're going to say, all right, nothing's changed. We're all aware that this exists, and somebody's going to go do something about it. Instead of saying, you go do something about it, you're saying, I'm going to go do something about it. And that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a completely different mindset of taking that initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Pam, why don't you tell us how was the process for you of and you had a couple of times where it's like, okay, you kind of went back and forth between a couple of different directions again, because you have this experience, you could do multiple things, but really it seemed like what you landed on is what really truly kind of sets your soul on fire.
Yeah, so for me, it all stems back to my own personal experience. And so being a labor and delivery nurse comes along with a lot of stress, and not knowing what to do with that stress. And then a couple of months ago, I stumbled across a thing called birth trauma and vicarious trauma that I really had never heard those terms, other than birth trauma being something other than a mental health issue. And so what it did for me is it helped me understand why I practiced the way I practiced, what caused me to practice that way. And it actually helped me get closure with my own mental state, because I could finally put a name to it and understand how to solve and fix my own problem. And so I personally have learned and gained a lot of knowledge for myself. And so I figured that since I'm suffering from it and didn't know what it was, there's many other nurses out there that are suffering from it and they don't know what it is either. I also have been only working in labor and delivery my career. And so for me, I understood what my driving force has been and the walls that I kept coming up against and why I was so frustrated with my work. So it's helped me to understand why I had to step away from the bedside, and why I went into management, and why I became a director, and why I was never truly happy with any of the positions. I was happy at bedside, but then once I lost my bedside happiness, I lost myself. And I didn't understand why. And so now I know why, and now I know how to fix that.
Yeah. And more importantly, you can help others, other nurses, L&D nurses, like help them cope and understand a piece of the job that probably isn't really being talked about a lot. And so it's not being supported, as well as prepare nurses coming into the specialty that, we need to be aware, that this is part of the job, and, and how to manage that ourselves and also help patients manage that.
Absolutely. So it will help the patients, because the nurses will know how to help the patients and help themselves to maintain their mental health stability.
Yeah, it's critical.
Also, I think you run up against the kind of pre-notion, like, I'm in neurocritical care. So to me, L&D or OB, I mean, that's like the happy specialty. All those nurses are happy, like they, so that there might be that.
Babies all day, right? They just get to love on babies. That's what everybody thinks.
Like, what's hard about that? So you have that kind of like cynicism that, it's just kind of like, all right, well, if you're not happy, there's something wrong with you because you're in a happy specialty. So that you do have to kind of hit those barriers as well, from the exterior as well as the interior of what the nurses are experiencing.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I figured, since I didn't know what it was and that it existed, there's a lot of other nurses out there suffering that doesn't understand why they're suffering. And so I can help them understand that process and help them to get through it.
Absolutely. and keep them in nursing. Like this is like, these are some of the, symptoms that people just kind of label as a category called burnout. And then they, that's what can be that, that triggers them to leave the bedside. And our whole goal is to we need more nurses in nursing, not less. So our goal is, if we tackle some of these issues that are within the profession, as well as the gaps, help close some of the gaps in the system, we want nurses to see that, we really are the key to putting the heart and the health or the healing back into healthcare. I absolutely believe that. And so we can do that in different ways, inside the system and outside. Esther is coming to us all the way from Australia. Welcome. Oh, can you unmute, Esther?
And while she's unmuting, I just want to say, for those of you that have just joined us, we are talking to the NursePreneur Pitchfest contestants. These candidates for the last 8 weeks have been working on their pitch from, some of them from absolutely, no idea of what they were going to do, or they had so many ideas, which is just as difficult to work through. And now they're ready to do their pitches this week, and we're very excited. And we have Esther. Let me just see if I can unmute her.
There she's got it. Yeah, now she's good. Hey, Esther.
Can you hear me?
We can. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Great. Okay. But I can't hear you that well for some reason.
Okay. So the question, Esther, is, the question: how have you found the process? You're in Australia, different healthcare system, but there still are gaps there. Like, how did you find this process of trying to choose from your experience, what you could do, how to kind of narrow down what you chose and, kind of why you chose it?
Okay. I think I've been stalking Katie for years now. If she's to go into archives, she'll probably see a few emails from me asking how I could help nurses start their own recruitment business. So when I came to this program, I was really lost. I didn't know what to focus on. And Jill really did help. I think along in the course itself, I did get lost and totally changed everything for a moment there, and then, came back on track. So I ended up choosing this because I do own a healthcare recruitment business already. And I've had nurses come and ask me how to start, where can they get training from? So I just thought, okay, let me just, put everything that I know, my experience, the things that I was supposed to do, which I didn't do, and just come up with the course. So that's why I ended up taking this course to create a course. And the 8 weeks really just like put everything into place, like the wording. I didn't know what to say, how to basically say anything about the course itself. So it really did help. And like Jill said, yes, it's a different, healthcare system, but the problems are the same. The gaps are the same. And I like what the other two ladies have talked about is also here bullying. It's a worldwide thing. The bullying and everything else is the same.
Yeah. And so it's great because, you're like, here's an opportunity where, and some people would have just like said, well, here's kind of what I did, but you're recognizing that one, you've already done this business. You're doing this business right now. And for those of you who are not familiar, in Australia, what we call in the United States a staffing agency is the same thing as a health recruiting agency in Australia. So it's just different terms, but it's the same problem. It's putting healthcare professionals where they need them most because they don't have the staff. And so Esther already runs a successful health recruitment agency in Australia, and she was having all these people coming to her like, hey, how'd you do that? What do I need to do? And there is, when you're on the path, there's certainly lots of lessons you learn that now if you would go back, you might go, oh, I know how to avoid that misstep. And so it really is kind of like she's created like an insider's guide, which we'll learn about more tomorrow. But it's powerful to use your experience to, again, help other nurses to bring, something to fruition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
it's that telling thing too, Jill, because we've had a lot of students, and I'm thinking of one in particular over the years where the nurse was so good. Like her forte was like corporate nursing, and she loved corporate nursing.
Yeah.
And, we kept saying, why don't you teach nurses to be corporate nurses? And she was like, no. And for like a year and a half, we kept telling her like corporate nursing. And finally she came around and did corporate nursing and was very successful at launching a program in corporate nursing. And I feel like there's some of that in Esther, because it's kind of like when we were talking about Esther and what she does, I'm like, well, obviously she's going to do some sort of staffing agency or recruitment agency, right? And I don't think that was obvious from the get-go as you're working with her. But go ahead.
I mean, I think it's just like you can do all the things. Like, I mean, not all the things, but there's a lot of choices, and it's trying to match and align how to use our skills and experience and knowledge that we have, and align it with what we're really passionate about. And it is kind of like a lining up of the stars, so to speak, of kind of putting those all into the sweet spot that we're looking for, to really bring something to fruition. And sometimes what seems obvious, to somebody on the outside, when it's you're like, I mean, and like, Esther said, she was like there, and then she was not there, and then she was back there. It's like, oh yeah, okay, this is it, right? But sometimes you just have to, you just have to kind of walk that path and think about it. And sometimes it's just silence, truthfully. Nobody wants to hear that, but it's like really getting quiet and thinking about, okay, what is it that I truly am good at, that people are already coming to me for, that I really love and am passionate about what I'm doing. And how can I turn that into a business? Yeah. Thanks, Esther. Sarah, how are you doing? Sarah also sounds like she's from another part of the world, which she is, but she's actually coming to us from Texas.
Yeah, I claim to be Texan now because I've been here for 20 years. But I am from the UK.
That does not sound like Texas at all.
Yeah, I know. So Sarah, how do you like? And here, you've been a certified coach for a long time, right? I mean, you've been in leadership for, got years of experience in leadership. How did you find the process of being able to pull, it together and really get it honed in, so that you knew what your business kind of model and what your, solution was going to be, or your course program?
Yeah. So what was really key for me from doing this program was, as you said, I've been coaching nurses for quite some time now, and I have a background in education. And so I learned from education, just telling people what to do and how to do it isn't enough. And I thought that I'd found the answer with coaching. And of course, coaching is amazing because it really helps people utilize their own knowledge and skills. But what I discovered through my coaching experience with nurses was that they got promoted because they were excellent nurses. They were outstanding at clinical care. So they got promoted, and then they started to struggle because they didn't have the understanding of how their role had expanded. And so, it was the same mistake I made in my first management position. Well, I know what to do. I'll just tell everybody what to do and how to do it, and everything's going to be hunky-dory and fine. And people don't like being told what to do. And so what I discovered from doing this program, that there's a little piece missing between that excellent nurse and trying to coach an excellent nurse to be a great leader doesn't work until they understand what the role of a leader is. And we're so hard on promoting them because of their clinical skills. And then they get so much pressure because they're not performing well as leaders. And I truly believe this little gap in the middle, if they understand, they've got to let go and trust other people and develop and grow a team of people that can take care of the patients. And they have to also keep an eye on the company's key performance indicators and understand the processes that they want their teams to implement. because what the nurses typically do, they know how to do it all and want to do it all themselves. And then they have a team of people that are sitting around waiting for this. And so going through this program really helped me nail down that little gap that was, I didn't quite have that. And now I do. So I'm excited to be able to bring this forward. So it's been fun.
I love, I mean, that's exactly what you did. I feel like, you looked what was out there and you really, figured out the missing piece, and the missing piece is now your program. And that's the ultimate, business model, is really finding the true gap and then crafting a solution around it. And the truth of the matter is they were incredible clinicians. They were great clinical nurses, and they can be great leaders, but we have to help them bridge the gap, right? And that's exactly what you do. Yeah. So this little piece, like it opens up everything. Like that, it makes all the difference.
Yes, it really does. How can anyone be successful if they don't know what it is they're supposed to do to be successful?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love finding the gaps, right, Katie? That's what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a huge missing piece, and we'll get into it more tomorrow and the next couple of days. But I'm so happy to see something like this come to fruition, and everybody will have to wait to find out what exactly it is. But it's so amazing, and and I think a lot of this comes from all of you are here not because you're like, oh my gosh, how can I make $1 million? You guys are here because you thought, oh my God, there's this problem that's been existing for forever, and I'm going to do something about it. And that's what I love about this group and about Nursepreneurs in general, is just seeing this kind of magic happen. And you just take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and solve the problem that exists in front of you.
Absolutely. Yes. And Marita is doing much of the same. That's why it's like this whole group, like, it's like, yes, like all the diversity of the problems that we're tackling. And they're all in the healthcare system, and, Marita's in Canada and Esther's in Australia, and it doesn't matter. Like Esther said, the gaps are pretty much the same, no matter where you are. And Marita specifically was, really struggling with, like, why is this not available? Like, this is so important. So Marita, why don't you tell us, like, how you found taking what your experience and expertise is in nursing, and how to figure out how to wrap put that into a course or a program that is a business for you.
Okay. So most of my experience is in mental health. I left the hospital setting last year and went into private practice as an RN psychotherapist. It's a title that we can use in my province in Ontario. And I remember many night shifts, doing research on coping and vicarious trauma and resilience and all sorts of things. And what's come to light is that not everybody needs a therapist. Not everybody wants a therapist. We all have mental health, and we all deserve mental wellness. So as I was doing the research, as I meet with my clients, in the work that I do, a lot of it can be done by nurses, right? And in the Facebook groups, the nursing groups, I often see nurses, saying, okay, I'm burnt out. I want to give back to my profession. I want to help my nursing colleagues. How can I do that? So my vision and my dream is that nurses can do the mental wellness work. And that's what my course is. And you're not doing therapy. You're not doing counseling. You're supporting, you're empowering, you're educating, you're holding space. And you're helping people with things like, how do I cope with my kid being online for school? How do I cope with doing overtime and making time for myself? So a nurse who's got labor and delivery experience, that can be their niche, helping new moms settle into their role. A diabetes nurse, helping people cope with, the stress of COVID and how that might be impacting their blood sugar. The joke that I don't think is funny, but the joke that's going around in terms of the COVID-19, like those pounds, right? Like, it's okay to gain the weight, but it's also okay to try to do something about it. And that's what nurses are good at: educating, empowering, supporting. And if you follow your Nursing Practice Act, and it's called different things in different states and different provinces, different countries, you can do the work, right? You are educating, nurses are allowed to educating, you're mentoring, you're allowed to mentor, right? So I do hear nurses say, like, I wish I could do what you do. Well, you can. It might not be within the scope of psychotherapy, but not everybody needs the psychotherapy. They need education. They need hand-holding sometimes to know that somebody's in their corner. And that's what our whole world needs. You know, you look at the World Health Organization, there is a mental health crisis in the world. And they have statement papers saying nurses are needed. What kind of role can nurses play?
Yeah. I think this is so true because, you know, like there just aren't enough mental health professionals, you know, in the world right now. And I'm my background is in oncology, and we have looked at, you know, like, how do we deal with fear of recurrence? And a lot of patients struggle with that. And so they are doing studies right now trying to train nurses in that specific issue, and how to do exercises and how to support patients and how to help them work through some of those issues. So I think, you know, there is, again, here it is, you found this gap. You know, there's this big, actually expanding need, if anything. I mean, there was already a huge need in mental health and mental wellness, but the pandemic has certainly essentially poured gasoline on the fire. And I think everyone can agree to that. So again, I love how, you know, all of you have kind of found, you know, how to use your nursing experience and your knowledge and your skills, and really working in the front lines, that experience of finding out really where the gaps are. And now you're committed to doing something about it. And Jenny is another, you know, great example of that. Jenny is in fact working in oncology space.
Yes.
Jenny, so how did you find the process? You were kind of also already started, and how did you find kind of the process of really trying to, you know, make sure that, like, you knew what services you were providing, and kind of, you know, how that whole process went for you?
Yeah. So like you said, I had already started my business and was thinking that I was flying with it and it was getting nowhere really fast. And I knew I needed clarity because I, as you said, am coming from an oncology background, and I just had this whole vision of, you know, all my patients complained all the time. And my most recent position was in case management and navigation, and patients were still complaining there's not enough support, there's not enough education. And there wasn't enough time. Like, I was not allotted enough time with each of my patients to be able to really educate and support them and hold their hand, that was my job. And I just was flabbergasted, honestly, working in corporate America, that this was my role, and I could not fulfill my job the way that I needed, the patient needed, and really what my title really was and what my job description was. And I needed to do something about it. So that's really where the business idea came from. But as I said, when I started, it was like, I'm just going to help everyone. Everybody needs this. The whole world needs my services, because I'm going to just have everyone be helped. And that was just ridiculous. And I, you know, even in the beginning, when I started putting things together with you, was kind of like resisting limiting it to one certain cancer type. I was okay leaving some out, but I wasn't okay leaving some other ones out. So eventually I realized that, okay, it was going to just be breast cancer patients, because my mother passed away of breast cancer. And the whole reason I went into oncology in the first place was because of that. That drove me. Since I was a little girl when she died, I knew I had to give back. And this was my way of doing it. So all of my efforts, I had to just focus. I worked as a breast cancer navigator in 2 of my local healthcare systems. I knew I could do this. There was no reason why I couldn't. So when you were able to help me really kind of close that and I had to put the blinders on and see what I was doing, that helped me a ton. It really gave me the clarity that I needed. And as hard as the work was to get through that, it helped me to get the business to where it is, to where I'm like, okay, I serve breast cancer patients. They're constantly overwhelmed. They're just lost. There's so much waiting in their process of their treatments. They need so much more that I can offer. Let me help them through this process. Let me hold their hand and help them and serve them. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
And it just gave me, like I said, that clarity that helped me so much.
And that's, like, that's the big thing. I think as nurses, we all, like, it's our nursing heart that we want to, like, I want to help all the people. Like, I don't want to leave anybody out. Anybody I could possibly help.
Everyone.
I'm going to help them all. Right. But what happens is then when you try to convey that to people and let them know what you're doing, like, they don't know who you're talking to, because
they have no idea.
You're not, like, speaking to them as, it's very different as I can help anybody who has ever been diagnosed with cancer, as opposed to I can help, you right now. If you are, if breast cancer is part of your story, I can help you every step of the way. Like, it's just, it's the clarity, like, changes everything. It really does.
And it's kind of the same message here, because when I first started, it was really, I had the same thing. I'm like, I can help all nurses. And then it was like, well, I can help all healthcare professionals. Like, I could help PT and OT and all these different people. And it's like, it doesn't translate, right? Because they don't believe that I understand their unique position. And that's what the marketing comes down to, is really targeting into the unique, special. And even if there isn't any unique, special, or nothing unique or special about, translating your solution to other groups, they need to know that you understand their problem, their issue. And you can only do that with really precise marketing, to let them know that you understand. And that's one of the reasons, or one of the main reasons, to niche down into something like what you did. And it doesn't mean that you can't do those other things, but to get started, we need to have one foot in one place.
Yeah. That's what we call the later book. Like, later, I can expand to this. I can help more people if I choose to, right? But right now, you've got to start, with one focus and really dive in and channel all your energy and your passion and your experience. And you can also make a much better program or solution when you are tailored, right? Because we kind of saw that going through, is when you try to speak to all cancers, well, they're not all treated the same, and they definitely don't all have the same issues. And so what is that program going to look like? So it completely, like, changes everything when you do, get specific with who you're really, going to serve and help. You can do it in a much more tailored way. And I think in a much more impactful way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. And Eileen, she's also been in nursing business for quite a long time. For a number of years, coaching, has a lot of experience in coaching as well. Eileen, how have you felt? How was the process for you? I think you kind of experienced the same thing. It was trying to figure out exactly who you wanted to work with. That seemed to be kind of like the big challenge, I think. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I left, I had a business before with a business partner, and we did executive stress management coaching, soft skills, a lot of health and wellness related to that. And a couple of years ago, we decided to go our own way. So I was trying to really kind of figure out what my niche was at the time. And at that time, I worked with most people, and they were upper executives. So they were anywhere from 45 to 65 of age. And in the last couple of years, though, who keep coming to me are the younger females. So anywhere between 25 and 35. And I was, at one point, I was even getting 21 years old. I'm like, oh no, I don't really want that.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Hold on a minute.
How'd you get my card? No.
I was a little resistant to that. And even with the younger females, with the young professional women. And so this last year with COVID, I wound up, that was who my clientele was. And I thought, okay, somebody's sending me a message like, okay,
hello, universe.
We need to be. And so it's interesting because I've been following Katie for a while. And last year, I guess Las Vegas or something, you guys used to do the big thing in Las Vegas, I think. And somewhere. And so I bought her 90-day calendar about a year ago. So I've been kind of stalking the group too. And so really in the fall, I said, okay, I keep seeing this. I keep going on. I just need to get back to basics pretty much with my nursing. Like I just felt this pull to get back really, because the coaching philosophy that I believe in is all based in nursing anyway. So, and I'm a certified nurse coach. So I thought, okay, let me really get back and see. It just seemed like to resonate. So during the course, and that was my struggle, is really honing in. And I told Jill, I've done a lot of different coaches. I have a lot of different biofeedback background. And I said, my thing is, I didn't want to be labeled a mindset coach because everybody out there is a mindset coach. And it's like, I just didn't want to say that. So my title I was struggling with my title, so to speak, And so then that caused me to struggle with like, who's my ideal client if I don't know. So what it really did for me was really made me step back and really reevaluate, what really, who I want to work with to get that joy and that fun, and really who can I make the most impact with. And it seems like I've been making the impact with these young professional women. And therefore, I think that's a really good target. And for me, I wound up getting burnt out and wound up developing autoimmune disease early on, probably in my early 30s, related to trying to do it all, right? Work as a nurse. I had a little side business, a parent, all of those things. So I just think it just came full circle for me going through the course. And I really was able to hone in and get clarity. And Jill would always say, okay, is that their language or your language? And I'm like, oh, John, she would call me on that all the time. And I would say, I think it's my language. Because, okay, well, go back to GMP and find out. So just that encouragement and just that clarity really did help me through the process. So I really enjoyed it. And I really do think that I'm way ahead of where I was in starting. I feel really excited.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, this is not easy, friends, for all of you who are watching. I mean, these nurses, I have got to hand it to them. Like, they have seriously put in the work, and it's, again, anybody can have a great idea. But bringing it to fruition takes a whole nother level. And I think what a lot of people found, and Katie and I talk about this a lot when we do Inner Game, is there's so much personal growth that is required, whether you want to do it or not, in the process. But it really is a lot of self-discovery. And, and that's kind of the big thing is, here Eileen was actually her, the audience that she's now going to serve is when she is like, that's when we're hitting your struggle, isn't it? It is really full circle for you. Mm-hmm. But it's not as easy. Like, as nurses, we just want to educate. Like, that's normal. That feels natural to us. We want to use our nursing experience. We want to educate. We want to tell them. But it doesn't always, there's much more to putting a course together than just putting your nursing knowledge into, some recorded modules, right, Katie? There's a lot more that goes into it than that.
Yeah, and there's a lot less that goes into it as well, because as Jill would like to say, you don't want to verbal vomit on people and just to share everything that you know, because it's too much. So there's certainly an art to keeping your knowledge to a minimum and simplifying it for your audience so that they understand and then they can achieve like quick wins and stuff. And it's a really important art that you need to learn in order to sell. And the only way to help people is to persuade them that you have the answer. And that's really what this course and this program was about, was, you have the knowledge, you have the skill set that Jill and I don't have. You have your own experience and knowledge, but, what we do have is that ability to, help you see what could be a great outcome for somebody. And a lot of you have 2, 3, maybe even 4 courses in your nursing knowledge, probably even more than that, but we were starting out with one, and we just wanted you to take that little sliver and run with that, and that's what you guys have done, and it's absolutely amazing. And I actually have one of the judges down here with me in Mexico, and I was like, I'm so excited to talk about. I'm like, all right, I cannot talk. You got to hear it cold.
I know.
You got to hear them for the first time. But I'm dying. Like, it's killing me. I want to talk about it.
I just want to get to tomorrow. It's like Christmas Eve for me. It's like, ew, I just want to like, let's just do it. Let's just skip it. We're just going to go straight to it. But I want to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, having said that, so this is for everybody that's listening. This is the NursePreneur Pitch Fest, and these are our 8 contestants for this week. This is a 4-day event that is kicking off tonight. We're getting to know the contestants. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, March 23rd at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to be doing 2-minute pitches. The nurses have put together 2-minute pitches for us to listen to, and we have 4 judges in total. So it's Jill and I and 2 other judges that don't know the contestants at all. And we are going to talk about their 2-minute pitches and what resonates, and also what could potentially use a little work. And I want to preface that with, we all need to work on our pitch.
Yeah.
It's not criticism. It's not saying this is no good. It's, this is where it could be stronger.
Yeah.
And Jill, I know you like to say that this comes from a place of love, and we will talk about that again tomorrow. But the reason that we have not cold judges like they're cold, but judges
Cold
that don't know
audience.
anything about the contestant, cold audience, is for that exact reason, because they don't have any type of affection for you at this point, right? That we want to know if the message is clear, it makes sense, and it resonates. And we can only get that really from a cold audience. And that's really what Pitch Fest is about, is, it's the opportunity to present a pitch, right? And see how it goes. Like, it doesn't resonate or it does not resonate. It's not a failure, and it's, it's never a failure. It's always about, all right, well, what didn't quite work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always work in progress. It's always learning. And I love like the format. Like, we intentionally kind of create, we're trying to simulate really what it is when you get out into the marketing world, because Katie and I are the warm audience. So we do know kind of what you are doing, and we get we've got a better feel for it. So you have a warm market. Like, you have colleagues in your network already. You have people in your, friends and family list who may already be part of your kind of your target audience. But then you can't just stay there. You also have to be able to resonate with a cold audience. And that's why we bring in 2 judges that don't know you at all, to have no idea what you're doing, to really hear that for the first time, because it is a great simulation of, okay, when I go to market, I've got to be able to resonate with both. And I want to take that feedback from both sides and go, okay, all right, like, I think I see that. That's not how I heard it. So if they hear it that way, then how many other people might hear it that way? So, maybe there is a better way for me to tweak it again. And the whole goal is just to help you, make your pitch and your messaging stronger, so that when you, are out there in your audience, like, that you connect even better. And they've been working hard on this already. So I know it's going to be great. But as always, it doesn't matter how long you've been in it. Like, it's always work in progress. It's always just a constant, thing that you're always working to tweak and test and learn, and then tweak and test and learn, right? It's just a constant cycle.
Right. So you really have to love that evolution of yourself, the evolution of your business, and because you're never just going to put the business together and be like, all right, I'm done, and then the money just comes in. That never happens like that. Yeah. Put it together, and then click autopilot. It doesn't work that way. So this is a labor of love, and that's why you want to be passionate and excited about what you're doing, because it's always for me, it's always like, what's next? And Jill and I were having this conversation this morning. I'm like, how can I pivot here? What can I do? How can I solve this problem? Or these are the problems that we have coming to us now. Like, should I focus on these, or should I stay the course with that? So it's constant strategy. And that's what I think is fun and exciting about a business. And for people like with Jenny, for instance, with breast cancer, she might see some parallels with something else that she can get involved in. And then she takes the business one step further and goes down this direction and creates, obviously Amazon didn't start the way it is today. It started in like Jeff Bezos' garage or whatever, but it evolved over time, and he loves the whole process of building and creating, and that's what nursepreneurs like to do.
Yeah, and it's just all about helping close the gap. Yeah, and we're making our own impact, and that will grow, as we get out there. So I'm so excited.
All right, so tomorrow, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to do the individual pitches. We'll do an evaluation. We can have some audience participation. We'd love to hear what you guys think as well. And we are going to start that tomorrow. So
yes. All right, so tune in. Yeah. Tune in. Make sure you, and there is a replay available, but we love to have everyone live. As many people live as we can. You can certainly comment as we're on here, and give us, we in the past, this is our second Pitch Fest, and first Pitch Fest, we definitely had audience comments, and that, like, it's just nice to hear, again, they're also just like the other two judges. They're a great representative of, from a cold audience. What does that resonate like? And, they've given us some great feedback, the last round. So I'm looking forward to audience participation again this year.
All right, everybody, we will see you tomorrow.
All right. Good night, everybody.